A 67-year-old in Phoenix opens her brokerage statement on a Tuesday morning. She stopped working 4 years ago. Her net worth is higher now than the day she retired. Not by a little, by roughly $180,000. She didn't inherit anything, she didn't sell a business, she didn't pick a hot stock. The market did its thing, sometimes up, sometimes ugly, and the account kept growing anyway. The story of retirement most people carry around, that it's a slow, controlled demolition of everything saved, turns out to be wrong for a specific group of people. Not the lucky, not the rich. The ones who understood something structural about how money behaves once the paycheck stops. What follows isn't motivation, it's the math. And the math is more interesting than the motivation, because the math says retirement isn't the end of wealth building. For a particular kind of retiree, it's the start of the most efficient years of it. The mainstream retirement script reads like a countdown. Save aggressively for 40 years, hit a number, then spend the next 30 draining it down, hoping the market and your body cooperate. That model produces a specific kind of anxiety. The 401k statement becomes a fuel gauge. Every withdrawal feels like a leak. Most people internalize this so deeply that they actually underspend in retirement. Research from the Employee Benefit Research Institute consistently shows that many retirees end their lives with more savings than they started retirement with. The underspending isn't the interesting part. The interesting part is why the math even allows it. A salary, looked at honestly, is a strange instrument. Roughly a third of it disappears to taxes, payroll deductions, and retirement contributions before it ever lands in a checking account. Another chunk services debt, a mortgage, a car, sometimes a kid's tuition. What's left runs the household. Take the salary away, and a lot of those costs go with it. That's not motivational, that's bookkeeping. But the bookkeeping is what nobody explains. Picture 2 columns on a sheet of paper. The left column is what a $100,000 salary actually does. The right column is what happens when that salary ends and Social Security begins. On the left, federal income tax, state tax in most places, the 7.65% payroll tax for Social Security and Medicare, a 10% retirement contribution if you're disciplined, the mortgage payment, commuting costs, lunches you didn't pack, dry cleaning, maybe $30,000 a year for a kid in college. On the right, a much smaller tax bill, because Social Security is only partially taxable depending on income, and often not taxed at all by the state. No payroll tax. That vanishes the day the W-2 stops. No more retirement contributions, because there's no salary to defer. The mortgage, for the disciplined, was paid off in the early 60s. The kid graduated. The commute disappeared. The lunches got cheaper. The same lifestyle in many cases costs 30 to 40% less to maintain. Not because anything was sacrificed, because the cost of earning money, which most people never separate from the cost of living, went away. Stay with this for a second, because it's the part that breaks people's intuition. The pre-retirement version of you wasn't spending $100,000 on lifestyle. You were spending maybe $55,000 on lifestyle and the rest on the infrastructure of having a job, raising dependents, and saving for the future. When the job, the dependents, and the saving all end around the same time, the lifestyle number is what remains. And the lifestyle number is what the portfolio actually has to fund. There's a quiet stretch in early retirement that financial planners obsess over and the general public has barely heard of. It runs roughly from age 62 to 73. During this window, several things are true at once. Wages are zero. Social Security may not have started yet, especially for anyone delaying it. Required minimum distributions, the IRS rule forcing withdrawals from traditional retirement accounts, don't begin until age 73, after the Secure Act 2.0 pushed the age back from 70.5 a few years ago. The result? Someone with a healthy 401k and no other income can have a taxable income close to zero in those years. That sounds like a problem. It's actually the opportunity. In those low-income years, money can be moved from a traditional IRA into a Roth IRA and taxed at very low rates, often 10 or 12%, sometimes nothing at all up to the standard deduction. Once that money is in the Roth, it grows tax-free for life and can be withdrawn tax-free in the higher spending years that follow. The retirees who do this aren't pulling off a trick. They're using a window that closes the moment Social Security and RMDs both start. Most people walk past it without ever noticing it was there. Here's where the obvious answer turns out to be wrong. The instinct in early retirement is to live as cheaply as possible and let the portfolio compound untouched. But leaving traditional IRA money to grow inside the account means it eventually gets pulled out under RMDs, often into higher tax brackets, sometimes pushing Social Security benefits into taxable territory and triggering Medicare premium surcharges through something called IRMAA. The hoarder pays for the caution decades later, with interest. The counterintuitive move is to pull money out earlier, when it's cheap to tax, and reposition it. This is the part of the playbook that separates the retirees whose wealth grows from the ones who watch it slowly evaporate. It feels backwards, spending savings before they're strictly necessary, voluntarily generating taxable income, paying tax now to avoid more tax later. The discomfort is real. The math, as always, doesn't care. Then there's Social Security itself, which most people claim wrong. Social Security can start at 62, at full retirement age, 67 for most current retirees, or be delayed up to age 70. For every year past full retirement age that someone delays claiming, the monthly benefit increases by 8%. That increase is guaranteed by federal law, adjusted for inflation, and paid for life. There is no fixed income product on the open market that offers anything close to that. The catch is that delaying requires a bridge, money to live on for the years between retiring and claiming. That bridge usually comes from the same accounts that are getting Roth converted in the tax window, which is why these strategies don't sit in isolation, they braid. A typical pattern from the retirees whose net worth holds or grows looks like this. Retire at 62 or 63. Live off taxable brokerage accounts and small IRA withdrawals. Convert as much as possible to Roth at the lowest available bracket. Delay Social Security to 70. By the time the larger Social Security check arrives, the taxable accounts are partly depleted, but the Roth has grown. RMDs are smaller because the traditional balance shrank, and the monthly Social Security check is roughly 76% larger than it would have been at 62. This isn't a secret. It's been published in financial planning literature for more than a decade. Most people don't do it because spending down savings before claiming Social Security feels like running the engine in reverse. The next assumption worth breaking is the one about stocks. The old rule was simple. Subtract your age from 100, and that's the percentage of the portfolio that should be in stocks. A 65-year-old, by that rule, would hold 35% stocks and 65% bonds. That rule was built for a world where the typical retiree died around 72. A 65-year-old today has, on average, another 20 to 25 years of life ahead. According to the Society of Actuaries, a married couple at 65 has roughly a 50% chance that at least one spouse lives past 90. A portfolio that has to last 25 or 30 years cannot behave like a 5-year emergency fund. It needs growth, not just preservation. The retirees who end up wealthier than they started often hold 50 to 60% equities throughout their 60s and into their 70s. They aren't being reckless. They're matching the asset allocation to the actual time horizon, not to the calendar age. This involves accepting ugly years. The portfolio will fall 20% at some point, maybe more. The discipline is in not selling stocks during those drops. That's where the bond and cash allocation earns its keep, providing a buffer so spending can come from the safer accounts while equities recover. That structure has a name, a bucket strategy. Years 1 through 2 of expenses in cash, years 3 through 7 in bonds, year 8 onward in stocks. It's not exotic, it's just deliberate. None of this fixes the genuinely hard problems of retirement. It doesn't fix sequence of returns risk, the ugly possibility that the market falls 30% in the first 2 years of retirement just as withdrawals begin, doing damage that no later recovery fully repairs. It doesn't fix long-term care costs, which run roughly $100,000 a year for a private nursing home room and aren't covered by Medicare. It doesn't fix inflation, which over a 30-year retirement can roughly halve the purchasing power of a fixed dollar. And it doesn't fix the fact that the median American household approaching retirement has somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 in retirement savings, well below what most of these strategies assume as a starting point. The retirees whose net worth grows after retirement are not representative. They arrived at 60 with a paid-off house, a 6- or 7-figure portfolio, reasonable health, and the cognitive bandwidth to manage complex tax decisions. Pretending otherwise would be dishonest. But the structural reasons their wealth grows, disappearing payroll taxes, the tax conversion window, the Social Security delay credit, the stock allocation matched to longevity, those are available to anyone whose situation allows for them. The mistake is assuming retirement automatically means decline. It doesn't. It means a different financial physics, and most people never bother to learn the new rules. If there's a single trait that shows up across the retirees who thrive, it isn't frugality. Most of them aren't particularly frugal. It's that they treat retirement as an active financial decade, not a passive one. They run tax projections in October, before year-end. They rebalance. They rerun the Roth conversion math every year because the brackets shift and so does the portfolio. They compare the cost of paying a fee-only financial planner against the cost of not having one, usually a few $1,000s a year, and most decide the planner pays for themselves several times over in tax savings. The do-nothing retiree, the one who set an asset allocation in 1995 and never touched it again, usually does fine, but rarely does best. The compounding edge in retirement comes from a series of small, deliberate decisions made annually, not from any single brilliant move. That's the part the headlines miss. There is no secret, there is a discipline. The single most actionable shift for anyone within 10 years of retirement is to start mapping the tax window now. Not the portfolio number, not the withdrawal rate, the tax window. Pull the most recent tax return, look at the marginal bracket, then ask the question almost nobody asks. What will the marginal bracket be in the first 5 years after the paycheck ends? For most people, the answer is dramatically lower, possibly the lowest bracket of their adult life. If that's true, traditional 401k contributions in the final working years may be worth less than Roth contributions, because the deduction is being taken at a lower rate than the eventual withdrawal would have been taxed. And in the early retirement years, conversions become the lever that quietly resets the entire trajectory. This week, the concrete move is small. Pull last year's return. Find the line that says taxable income. Write down what that number would look like with no salary. That number is the starting point for everything else. The retirees whose net worth grows after they retire know that number cold. The ones whose net worth shrinks have usually never calculated it. If this changed how retirement looks from where you're standing, the next analysis on this channel breaks down the specific Roth conversion math at 3 different portfolio sizes: what to convert, when, and the exact tax bracket to stop at. Subscribe so it lands in your feed when it drops. The retirement game has rules most people never learn. This channel is where they get explained.